What are we cooking today? Or better yet, what's for lunch? Let's talk about planning for a moment, as it has always been a very important part of my life. If you don't know me, please be advised that I plan even the time I'm supposed to wake up the next day. Yes, that's who I am. But planning for your cooking life is very important. I plan every single party month in advance, and I usually design a menu around seasonal items, so I can complement it with anything that can be made in advance, making my life easier. Be easy or not, preparing items ahead is always a great idea. Later on in the podcast, I will share a recipe for a cake that can be either vanilla or marble, but it can be made a week in advance and frozen. And why do you do that? Because if you have something else to do during the week before your party, you have time in your hands. You will need to prepare the filling, the frosting, and you might spend time decorating your cake. If you decide not to make that a festive cake with no frosting or no filling, the cake is simply delicious to make for an afternoon tea. But first, let's go to our weekly menu. Monday, Greek spinach pie, also known as spanakopita. Tuesday, ground beef for tacos or savory crepes. Ooh, I just said crepes. Geez, it's crepes. Sorry guys, the French in me. Wednesday, chicken salad, Brazilian style. Thursday, shrimp risotto. And Friday, Italian pizza with arugula, red onions, and sun-dried tomatoes. Bon appetit. So, my dear audience, this is our second segment, and it's when I interview somebody who's very dear to me and either knows food or knows how to cook or knows how to eat well or is an expat or a chef or something in the making or of a very creative mind. And today I have the pleasure to talk to Michael Trent. And Michael, I'm not going to introduce yourself. You will do it for me because the people really like to hear different stories. So tell us all about yourself.
I'm a New Yorker, born and bred in New York, and about 7 years ago, I moved to the countryside of Sao Paulo with my partner. And we live in a very small town, 70,000 people, surrounded by sugarcane, cows, pigs, and horses.
Very different from New York City.
Very different than New York City. This is definitely the closest to rural living I can get, but it's fun.
Okay, it's different, right, to say the least. And Michael, so we were chatting before, and you were telling me, so before I go into your departures, your arrivals, when did you move, all that fun stuff, we were talking about the explosion of food trucks, right? So you know this, in New York City for the past, I think 5 years or so, also the trucks have exploded. And it got to a point that there was a mafia because there's just an X amount of licenses around that people can grasp. How is it where you are? And you've been to Sao Paulo, the capital, many times. So what can you tell us about the scene over there?
Well, Sao Paulo City, which is just like New York City, is very different than where I am. Sao Paulo, the food scene has completely exploded. And in the 7 years I've been here, I think the last 3 to 4 years, I've seen a huge amount of, I want to say, younger Brazilians embracing, say, YouTube or HGTV or the Food Network. We have the Food Network here also. And they've finally decided to go on a whim and take a chance and try some non-traditional Brazilian foods. And there's one street in Sao Paulo, there's an alley. I can't think of the name of it. It's right off of Avenida Paulista.
That's okay. It will come to you eventually.
It will come to me. Rua Augusta.
Okay.
There's a food truck alley. It goes from Rua Augusta all the way through to the other street. It used to be a parking garage, an outdoor parking garage, and it's literally food trucks every, I think, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. Every Mexican, Chinese, Japanese, Brazilian, even bagels.
Nice.
Bagels are here in Sao Paulo. So yeah, and where we are here, basic food truck here is a burger food truck.
Okay.
Artisanal burgers have exploded in the last 3 years. There is a food truck kind of festival.
Movement?
It
Okay.
goes to a couple of companies that have food trucks, and they go from small town to small town.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. I mean, it's burgers. We have a Mexican food truck done by real Mexicans living here in Brazil. So you're getting the authenticity of the food, which, you know, I've had Brazilians make Mexican food. It's not the same as a Mexican making Mexican food.
Yeah, of course.
But it's nice to not have rice and beans and steak for a meal.
No, Michael, you have to see, like, you haven't lived in the South enough yet, okay? Go down south, and yeah, I can live without the rice and beans, but I cannot live without my meat. So it's a different story, different crazy people that live in the South that have this.
I've been to the South. I love Puerto Alegre. I've been to your town. It's beautiful down there, although I don't know how you people live in the winter.
Yeah, no, I can't stand it. See, the reason I moved. And of course, I came to a worse place, but it's okay.
Yes.
Michael, sorry, I just realized that I didn't tell the audience this, but we are recording this call because Michael is in Sao Paulo and I'm in New York, right? So you guys are going to hear the phone and something
We are
else.
seriously social distancing.
Yes. So I was going to ask you this, right? So you were talking about the food trucks and, of course, the authenticity of food and how all of this exploded. But with the pandemic going on, your town is small and I don't know the number of cases, but how do you guys feel about going out and eating? Or if you go to the food trucks, it's a different story, right? Because you can just pick up and walk away or sit at the bench at the main square.
It's been interesting because New York was kind of hit first. And I remember talking to my friends there and toilet paper was disappearing and people couldn't find flour or yeast. And I was talking to Hui, my partner. I was like, we need to go get flour. We need to go get, at least I can bake bread during the pandemic. I can live on bread, you know. This town, all the restaurants are closed. It's only takeout.
Okay.
Every food truck here, every restaurant, a lot of things operate on WhatsApp here.
Okay.
I don't know about the States because WhatsApp is, I'm used to it from here, not from New York.
What's becoming big is the Instagram for business that I know from the burrito place. Tony, shout out to you from Fat Boys Burrito on Merrick Road in Belmore. I called Tony and he picked up. So I see the Instagram for business is working better and works better than WhatsApp. I think the people who have a contact outside of the US, those are the guys who are going to use WhatsApp more than regular phone.
I mean, I love Instagram. I haven't just explored the business side to it yet, but I don't see many places here on Instagram, maybe in the bigger cities. And I'm only talking about what I see in this town.
Yeah,
Here, everything is WhatsApp. All the stores have a sign, you can order, here's our WhatsApp.
Yeah, I know. They send out promotions and stuff. Get a sort of a newsletter. It's not a newsletter anymore. It's more messages once a week or so, no? Depending on how you sign up.
Oh, I've never seen that here. I've never experienced it. Yeah. Sounds interesting.
Well, that's what they say that happens in my town. So all I'm hearing is my mother and my mother-in-law and my family telling me how they received their notifications.
This town's a little slower than the rest of the world.
It's okay. But see, like now that we're talking about this, you are somebody really crafty. Or how can I explain this? You're very creative, right? You have your blog and you have been writing in your blog for the longest. And I've been seeing you bake. And then the other day when you were making fudge with orange and nuts, it was so mouth-watering. I was drooling. So what do you like most about Brazilian cuisine? What can you live without? And what have you adapted?
Adapting to Brazilian cuisine for me was not very difficult. Brazilian cuisine is not strange. It's rice and beans. It's meat, steak and chicken. It's very American. And you know me from the States. I lived in a very Brazilian neighborhood. Shout out to Astoria, Queens. So I had already experienced Brazilian food and Brazilian drinks and Brazilian desserts before even my first trip to Brazil in 2002. I find that Brazilian food here in this town, it's a very working class town. Brazilians don't like to take risks on food, at least the old timers. So every restaurant here pretty much sells the same items. Nothing's really open for dinner, after 7 o'clock. It rolls up, the streets roll up. What's odd for me is like pizza here is after 7 p.m. and you have to buy the whole pie. Okay, so I do miss New York pizza. I like Brazilian pizza, but it's heavier on the cheese and it's a different balance. But I can't go and get a slice and a Coke. I have to buy the whole pie at night. Except for one place in Sao Paulo that's called Pedaços, and it's very New Yorkish. The fudge thing, most of my friends here either teach English, own an English school, are learning English. So I speak more Portuguese than I understand because I don't really converse too much in Portuguese. And I am constantly bombarded with questions about foods from New York, foods from Disney, and, cupcakes don't really exist here. And with this pandemic, I've always loved to bake, but I started to get into more baking. And I did the fudge because a friend of mine who owns a school, she said, to me out of the blue, I really miss fudge. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah, you know that fudge with the nuts in it? I'm like, okay. And I didn't tell her. The next day I made it. And I sent her a WhatsApp. I'm like, your fudge is ready. And she's like, what? And I was just experimenting. I've done the fudge with the walnuts. And I was like, let's try some orange rind. The orange was sitting in front of me. I'm like, chocolate and orange rind. That sounds good. And of course, I had the Oreos. I do miss my double stuffed Oreos.
That's funny.
Oh my God. Then I made the Oreo fudge and I used essence of mint. When I moved here, Oreos did not exist in this country. I used to have this joke. We would go to the supermarket and he would say to me, what are you looking for? I'm like, I'm just going to go check the cookie aisle to see if the Oreos arrived yet. Well, one day we were in the supermarket and I went to the cookie aisle and there in front of me was Oreos. My head exploded. I was like, oh my God, we have Oreos. Oreos have arrived in Brazil. Sadly, it's the original Oreos. We haven't arrived with double stuffs yet. I just buy originals and I take the cream out of one and I add it to another and I have my double stuffs. But
okay.
I miss strange things from New York. As far as Brazilian food, the fruits here are amazing. Passion fruit, maracujá, the best thing that God ever created.
Not mangoes or pineapples?
I'm not a mango person. I wasn't a very big mango person in New York because when I was younger, I had an allergic reaction to the mango skin and I kind of stayed away from it. Pineapples here are amazing. I miss berries. We get strawberries. Blueberries it's extremely difficult to find. We don't get cherries. 1 week a year I saw cherries last year and I pretty much bought whatever the store had. But it comes in and then it's gone.
Yeah, but Michael, I think blackberries are more common, right? But they are not as sweet. Am I wrong?
I love blackberry. I used to love it when it was blackberry season in the States. Here, I don't see it in the stores that much. And maybe it's because people have blackberry
trees at home,
plants on their properties. And I do see it sometimes in the Feta, and I will grab them. Jabuticaba is another thing. We do not have that in the States. Very interesting. I've made jabuticaba pie.
I thought you made like the drink. Because we would make the drink.
Caipirinha with jabuticaba? Sure. Okay, no problem.
No, and licor de jabuticaba.
I've had all those liqueurs when we go through Minas. No problem.
I have to tell you this. I learned this from my Italian friend, Antonella. She said, you cannot find in New York State the alcohol to make the liqueur. That's why it's so hard. And all the Italians cry when they get here that they can get good produce, but not the alcohol to make the drinks. But you don't have the same problem in Brazil, right?
Which alcohol? Just
to make drinks. It's a specific, not the one that you put over your cuts or anything like that.
I don't know. We buy the bottled, when we drive through Minas or something, we stop at these touristy places and they have these, bottles of all these different flavored liqueurs.
Yes. It's very Brazilian and very European, don't you think?
I've never seen it in the States.
Yeah, me neither. That's why, to me, it's different. But Michael, tell us more. So you've been baking bread and all the fun stuff. How about your craft? Being creative has been helping you guys through the pandemic. What else can you tell the people who are listening, that sometimes it's not that you don't know what to cook for lunch or dinner or make bread, and it is easy to make, isn't it?
Anything is easy to make, honestly. Breads are unbelievably easy. It takes about, 10 minutes to prepare the dough. You just let it rise and then you go back to it later on. And I have learned how to make a lot of things from living here. I've learned how to make bagels. We don't really have bagels. This is a couple of places. I've learned how to make my own brown sugar. I go to the store here and brown sugar is like 10 reais. And $10 Brazilian for a bag of brown sugar? Are you crazy? And I actually went on YouTube and I said, how to make brown sugar. I've lived on Pinterest and YouTube to learn how to do things. I make my own juices. I miss lemonade with lemons, limão siciliano. Everything here is limes. Yes. And we've always had lemons, super expensive, 15 to 20 reais a kilo for lemons. I'm not going to pay that. Recently, and I don't know if they've been imported, the price has dropped to almost $4 or $5 a kilo. So now I've started to make lemonade again. The big thing with me with baking breads here, Americans do not realize, and I did not realize, all the things we take for granted. You go into a supermarket in the States and you have regular flour, whole wheat flour, bread flour, pastry flour, self-rising flour. All these flours, you just throw it in your cart and you go. Here, I wanted to make something that, I don't remember the recipe. They said you really need to use bread flour. We don't have bread flour here, okay? Maybe in a professional baker's store in Sao Paulo or in Rio, they sell it. So I learned how to make bread flour. And honestly, when you do the research and you see how easy it is to make bread flour or self-rising flour, it's eye-opening. And you think, all these things I've always been afraid to try or I've always thought were difficult really aren't. I think people need to start to learn how to be more self-sustaining, how to, especially with this pandemic. I mean, we've been very lucky here. We haven't run out of anything. We've always had flour, and maybe it's where I live. I also live in a very rural area. I have a cattle farm 15 minutes from me. We go to the butcher on the cattle ranch to buy meat from them, fresh. And
makes a huge difference, doesn't it?
It's a huge difference. The taste of the meat. Meat here is so much tastier than in the United States because it's fresher here. It's the same thing with fruits. Yeah. And again, you don't realize this until you leave the States and experience it. Even if you're on vacation. I mean, if you go somewhere on vacation, try the local foods. Go to a local green market. Oh my God, the feta here, with the pandemic, the feta here is very different. The feta, for my American friends, it's like a green market. It's the best thing about Brazil. The best thing about Brazil. I mean, I used to go to the one on 14th Street in Manhattan, and everything was organic. Everything was expensive. I buy a head of lettuce here for 3 reais. It feeds me for a week. It's unbelievable how cheap the green markets are here.
Michael, so the same thing happened to us now that you talked about it. We went to Italy last year, right? So the day we decided to go to the Vatican, we had to wait. We bought the tour package, blah, blah, blah. We have to wait until it's our turn to go in, right? And then I had time to kill. I found out there was a municipal market 3 blocks away from Vatican. We go inside and it's just like Brazil. Everyone is willing to let you try this and that, so you can, of course, buy from them later. But the fruits were so tasty. Everything was way cheaper than compared to stores. And, and it's something that if you don't adventure yourself out of the box, you'll never experience it, right?
Yes, it's true. It's very true.
We love it. I can't wait to
I've
go
lost
back.
my fear here. I'm much more adventuresome here than I ever was in New York, but I don't have the responsibilities here that I had in New York. So lifestyle is different.
Yeah, I think that helps a lot too.
And people here, Nadia, everyone here is relatively so nice. You meet strangers, and I mean, we sometimes just get in the car and drive, and we end up talking to locals wherever we go, and they're like, oh, come into my restaurant here, sit down, let me get you a coffee. And you don't get this from Americans. I don't know if you get it from, I think you probably do get it from Europeans.
They're different, right? So I have to say, and my dear Italian people and friend, I love you to death. But then last year, yes, everyone was super nice to us at all times. I kept on telling people, you know, my Italian is sort of broken. I haven't spoken in a while. I'm a third generation. My grandfather was born in Italy, blah, 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 blah. They were very nice and very accommodating. But there's still some prejudice from the people from the south and the north of Italy. And I don't, it's historical. It's for centuries. We understand. It's just, to me, I didn't understand why they were so nice. And then all of a sudden they're like, you're from the north? Don't like you. You know, like, you were nice at first. You were nice at first. Just keep on being nice. It's so good.
It's like the Brazilians in the south of Brazil. They don't want to be with the rest of Brazil.
Oh, come on. We're nice people. I'm kidding.
I don't know if you've heard of him. There's a very famous Brazilian chef. His name is Pedro Benial. He used to have 2 shows on Food Network Brazil. Now he only has 1. One of them is called Tempero na Mochila. mozzarella, spices in the knapsack. And I think he's done 4 seasons, and each season he has gone to a different region of Brazil, and he travels through the region. Through every episode is a different town, and he highlights what's going on in the town, what the town is famous for, and then a restaurant, and he does a recipe. When he went through Porto Alegre, I'm writing down names. I said to Hui, I want to do this. Let's just get in the car and go. I want to stop it. I loved Porto Alegre. I thought it was an awesome experience, but I wasn't there long enough.
Yeah, it's nice. You saw, it's very different from the rest of Brazil, right? And even our fruits are different. And Michael, it's funny, every time we have friends here and they're from different states, they will ask us, oh, don't you miss this and that fruit? And then we say, no, sorry, because we never had it, right? We suffer from a few things that whatever grows in the north doesn't grow in the south because of the climate and the soil and all of that fun stuff. But it's funny to see their faces that they have that question mark and they look at you like, huh? How come?
Right.
What kind of Brazilian are you? And I really want to say, I'm as Brazilian as you are, but people, you have to understand, like, you guys have never had pinhão, for example, right? So it is the seed of the pine cone tree that will fall and then we have to cook, and we only eat it in the winter because, of course, it's when the thing drops on the floor and then we get a chance to cook it.
Right.
But come on, be nice to me. Just because we're from the same country, I didn't offend you by not having it. You know?
It's the same thing with the United States. I mean, I honestly feel like Brazil and the U.S. kind of mirror each other. You have different accents throughout Brazil. You have different accents throughout the States. You have different traditions and customs in different cities and parts of Brazil. The Northeast is very different in Brazil than the South. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing with New York. New York versus, let's say, New Orleans or Houston or, Minnesota. It's the same thing. I mean, when I tell people, they say to me, what are the flavors in pizza? I said, well, in the States, you might get a Hawaiian pizza on the West Coast versus the East. We have different flavors in different parts of the country. And they kind of look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, but it's like Brazil. There are things you can get in the Northeast you don't get here.
It is true.
When I compare the U.S. to Brazil, then they understand.
Yeah, very true. Michael, before we go, I have to ask you, if you don't mind, please give us your Instagram handle, your blog. How can we find you? How can people in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, in Cosmópolis? Well, they all find you in Cosmópolis, I bet. But if people want to get in touch because they really wanted to one day live in Brazil and they had no idea, can they talk to you? Is this too much? I don't want to put you in a hot spot.
Yes, they can talk to me and I will talk them out of it.
Okay, listeners, you are not to live in Brazil.
Bring your KitchenAid. I have a page on Facebook and my Instagram. It's the same thing, World of Michael Trent. My blog is worldofmichaeltrent.blogspot.com. Instagram is World of Michael Trent because my world consists of food. I'm a paper artist, the dogs, and my life here in Brazil.
Well, that's fun. I have to tell you have a very rich story. And you're welcome to come back at any time you want, okay?
I could talk about this for hours, so we could do this, once a month if you want.
Yes, and Michael, please, and tell us new recipes, and we'll talk more in details, but I remember once talking to other people, and they have the same concept that usually things in Brazil are way sweeter or way saltier. Do you also feel that?
I'm sorry, in Brazil?
Yeah, like salt is saltier and sugar is sweeter.
The salt here is saltier. The sugar, I might just be used to it at this point. I don't feel that the sugar, I think desserts here are much sweeter than in the States.
Mm-hmm. But there's nothing wrong with eating brigadeiros, right?
No, absolutely not. Which is, basically fudge is American brigadeiro. So
yes, we just beat it way more, right? When we make brigadeiros, like you don't beat the condensed milk so much when you're making fudge.
No, it's just brigadeiro is softer. But I moved to a country where I can get panettone or chocotone every day of the year. This is heaven.
Okay. So you're going to tell us more about your adventures when we meet next time. Okay, I'm going to call you in a month and we're going to talk about whatever has happened. Remember your departures and your arrival from the first podcast that you participated to the next one. And we'll be talking about panettone and chocotone. It is really the best invention. Chocotone is the best invention after panettone, I have to say.
Oh my God, habanate chocotone.
It's the best thing. People, that's French toast made with panettone. Panettone is the Italian, sweet bread that we make around Christmas time.
It's heaven.
It's to die for. It's to die for. Okay, Mike, I'm going to let you go, and I have to let go. And the people, sorry, I know we had a lot of fun, and I hope they also like to listen to us. But we'll come back, and it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.